Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, The Fallen Pages. Today is another poem by Allama Iqbal. In Urdu, it's Iblees Ki Majlis-e-Shura, which means the devil's conference. So I'm gonna write the whole poem in the description or in the comments below. This is basically an analysis of his poem. So you can go read the poem and then look at the video afterwards. The terrifying thing about the Devil's Conference, the poem, is not that it speaks about Satan. The terrifying thing is that Satan sounds reasonable. Not good, not righteous, reasonable, measured, strategic. Like a statesman who has survived too many centuries and understands humanity better than humanity understands itself. And perhaps that is why the poem refuses to die. Because every generation reads it and suddenly feels accused. Not by God, not even by Iqbal, the writer, but by history itself. The poem opens not with fire but with a fatigue. It goes like this ancient game of elements. It starts with this line. Immediately the world collapses in scale. Human civilization, with all its monuments and constitutions and armies and ideologies, is reduced to a game, dust colliding against dust, empires appearing like waves and disappearing just as quickly. There is almost something cruelly Shakespearean in this opening. It resembles King Lear, where kingdoms disintegrate beneath storms, while human beings slowly realize they were never truly in control. Shakespeare repeatedly humiliates power by exposing how temporary it is. Kings scream into rainstorms, generals die in mud, lovers become corpses, and Iqbal begins from precisely that vantage point. Civilization is fragile. Humanity merely pretends otherwise. Because this is not merely poetry, it is theater, a dark inversion of prophetic revelation. Instead of angels gathering around a divine truth, devils gather around strategy. Instead of a sacred council, we enter a parliament of corruption. Iblis sits upon a throne while his counselors report him the state of mankind, of humans. The structure itself resembles Macbeth. Whispers, prophecies, psychological infections. The witches in Shakespeare never force Macbeth to murder Duncan. They simply awaken something already hidden within him. Ambition existed before prophecy arrived. Evil merely gave it direction. Muhammad Iqbal, the writer, says Iblis functions exactly the same way. And that is what makes him frightening. He does not create greed, he irrigates it. He does not invent tyranny, he refines it. A line in the poem is, I showed Europe the dream of imperialism. Dream. Notice the precision of the word, not command, not force, but dream. This is where the poem suddenly becomes psychological rather than theological. Iblis understands that human beings rarely follow naked evil willingly. Evil must first become seductive. It must appear noble, civilized, necessary, and historical. And suddenly the 20th century enters the room like a ghost. Hitler spoke of destiny, Stalin spoke of equality, colonialism spoke of civilization. This is why the poem feels almost Machiavellian. Machiavelli understood that power survives through perception. A ruler does not merely dominate armies, he manipulates imagination, he constructs narratives, stories. But Iqbal's Satan surpasses Machiavelli because he manipulates not merely rulers but civilizations themselves. Then comes the devastating line in the poem. It goes like, we ourselves dressed monarchy in democratic clothing. This line slices through history like a blade. Because Iqbal is not condemning democracy in some simplistic political sense. He is exposing humanity's ability to repaint old tyrannies with modern language. The crown disappears, The hunger survives, the throne disappears, domination survives. And suddenly the poem resembles Dostoevsky, Grand Inquisitor from the brothers Karamazov. The Grand Inquisitor tells Christ that humanity does not truly desire freedom. Humanity desires bread, certainty, and authority. Freedom terrifies people because freedom demands responsibility. Iqbal sees the same catastrophe unfolding. Chains are inefficient. Comfort is superior. The ideal prison is one the prisoner decorates himself. And then Iqbal turns toward religion itself. This is where the poem becomes genuinely dangerous, because weaker writers attack religion from outside. Iqbal attacks corruption from within religion itself. He understands that faith can become stagnant, decorative, and sedative. He says, keep him occupied with pre-dawn remembrance. The line feels almost shocking because tahajjud, remembrance of God, the prayer in the Muslim culture before dawn, is sacred within Islam. Yet Satan recommends it. Why? Because Iqbal is not mocking worship. He is mocking worship divorced from transformation. Prayer without courage, tears without action, a forehead touching the ground while the spine forgets how to stand before tyranny. The symbolism of standing becomes central throughout the poem. Iqbal repeatedly attacks what he calls prayer without standing. And immediately the entire Abrahamic tradition converges around this image. Moses stands before the Pharaoh. Abraham stands before idols. Christ overturns the tables in the temple. Prophets move history. Hell prefers paralysis disguised as spirituality. And here the poem becomes resembling Al-Ghazali, the scholar. Al-Ghazali feared sterile intellectualism. He feared knowledge becoming disconnected from transformation, from meaning. A scholar could memorize theology while remaining spiritually hollow. Iqbal fears the same disease, which is why Satan says, better that he remain entangled in theology. The line is extraordinary because it attacks distraction disguised as sophistication. Endless metaphysical debates, endless doctrinal arguments, humanity trapped in abstraction while civilizations burn outside. And suddenly the poem resembles the Screwtape letters with astonishing closeness. Lewis, the writer of the Screwtape letters, and Iqbal are performing almost identical literary experiments. Both allow devils to explain evil. Both reveal temptation through conversation rather than violence. Both understand that hell operates subtly and strategically, but their scale differs radically. Lewis focuses microscopically upon the corruption of an individual soul. Irritation, vanity, spiritual laziness, the ordinary decay of everyday morality. Iqbal works cosmically. Civilizations become his battlefield. Economics, empires, religion, politics, history itself. Screwtape fears humility because humility reconnects man to God. Iblees, the Satan, fears awakening because awakening reconnects civilizations to purpose. Lewis writes like a psychological surgeon dissecting temptation. Iqbal writes like a prophet standing upon ruins. And yet both reach the same conclusion. Evil succeeds most effectively when people believe themselves righteous while walking towards destruction. Then comes one of the greatest moments in modern poetry. Iblis becomes afraid. Pause there for a moment. The devil fears something. Not socialism, not capitalism, not science, not armies. No, if there is anything I fear, he says. The room stills and then comes another line from the poetry. It goes like, within those ashes there still remains a spark of desire. Ashes. Iqbal chooses the symbol carefully. Ashes imply former fire. Something once burned magnificently. Something collapsed, something destroyed, but not completely. This image echoes through countless traditions. The phoenix rising from ashes in Greek mythology, resurrection in Christianity, the burning bush in Judaism and the Abrahamic traditions, the Quranic imagery of divine light piercing darkness. Even Ibn Arabi, the scholar, whispers through this symbolism. Ibn Arabi believed reality exists behind veils. Human beings see fragments while deeper truths remain hidden beneath appearances. Iqbal's ember beneath ashes becomes precisely that hidden truth. Humanity is not dead, it is asleep. And here the poem begins resembling Carl Jung in profound ways. Jung believed modern humanity had become alienated from its deepest self. The shadow remained buried beneath consciousness. Civilizations wore masks while primitive instincts continued breathing underneath. Iqbal's Iblees behaves almost exactly like the shadow. He exposes what humanity refuses to confront: cowardice, greed, submission, moral exhaustion. And like Jung's shadow, Satan grows stronger whenever humanity refuses self-examination. Even Edgar Allan Poe lingers inside the atmosphere of this work. Poe specialized in psychological architecture, rooms becoming symbols of eternal decay, cathedrals of madness, chambers of hidden corruption. Iqbal's Parliament of Hell resembles a Poe nightmare, a sealed room where civilization confesses its secrets. But beneath all these philosophical and political dimensions lies a deeper metaphysical argument. Iqbal ultimately believes humanity was created for transcendence. The tragedy is not merely oppression. The tragedy is forgetfulness, being lazy. Which is why the poem's climax arrives like a revelation. This earth belongs not to kings but to God. That line destroys every empire in the poem, every tyrant, every ideology, every false ownership. Because if the earth belongs to God, then no ruler truly owns mankind. No system owns truth, no empire owns morality. And suddenly the reason for Satan's fear becomes clear. Hell does not fear sinners nearly as much as it fears awakened people. Not ritualistic people, not decorative believers, awakened people, people who remember dignity, purpose, and responsibility. People who stop confusing comfort with peace. This is where Iqbal intersects strangely even with Nietzsche. Nietzsche feared passive humanity, herd mentality, spiritual weaknesses. Yet Nietzsche sought salvation through the Übermensch, man transcending morality itself. Iqbal rejects Nietzsche's conclusion but shares his hatred for spiritual paralysis. The difference is crucial. Nietzsche kills God to liberate man. Iqbal resurrects man through God. And perhaps that is why the poem still feels alive today, because it is not truly about colonialism or Europe or socialism or democracy. Those are surfaces. The real subject is the human soul standing at the edge of sleep. The real question is whether humanity remembers itself before history consumes it completely. By the end of the poem, hell no longer feels mythological. It feels administrative, institutional, economic, psychological, embedded within systems themselves. And perhaps that is Iqbal's greatest achievement. He transforms Satan from a monster into a mirror and forces civilization to stare into its own reflection long enough to become afraid. So I guess this is it, guys. Hope you guys like the review, the analysis, and if you have any questions regarding the poem, the poetry, and any other text, please leave that in the comments below so that I can make more analysis on the things you guys like, and I'll keep on sharing the stuff I like. See you in the next video.